The Cold War begins. So, in Cold War, it introduces the global struggle between two post-World War II superpowers, the United States and the Soviet Union. Though no direct war occurred between them, their ideological, political, and military rivalry shaped international relations from the late 1940s to early 1990s. So, by the end of this lesson, students should be able to understand the causes and the early developments of the Cold War, it, and also assess the Truman Doctrine's role in U.S. foreign policy, explain containment as a long-term U.S. strategy, and describe the significance of NATO and the Warsaw Pact in dividing in the world into opposing military alliances. So, origins in the Cold War. After the World War II, the tensions escalated within the capitalist West, led by the US, and the communist East, led by the USSR. The US wanted to rebuild Europe on democratic and capitalist lines, while the Soviet Union sought to secure its borders and expand communist influence in Eastern Europe. This ideological conflict, freedom versus control, democracy versus one-party rule, led to deep mistrust and opposing geopolitical interests. Next slide is the Truman Doctrine. In 1947, President Harry Truman announced that the U.S. would support countries resisting communism. Greece and Turkey were the first recipients of American aid as communists threatened to take power there. The doctrine marked the beginning of the U.S. policy of containment of aiming to stop the spread of communism globally. Next is the containment policy. Proposed by George Kennan, containment was about limiting Soviet influence to areas it already controlled. It became the backbone of U.S. foreign policy throughout the Cold War. This strategy led to economic programs like the Marshall Plan, which rebuilt Europe to prevent communist appeal, and to military alliances and proxy wars in Korea, Vietnam, and beyond. So in slide 6, formation of NATO. In 1949, the US, Canada, and the Western European nations formed the North Atlantic Treaty Organization, or NATO. NATO was a military alliance promising mutual defense on attack on all. It was a major shift in U.S. policy, moving from the isolationism to international military commitment. Next, the Warsaw Pact. In response, the Soviet Union established the Warsaw Pact in 1955, a military alliance of Eastern Bloc countries. It solidified Soviet control and created a clear East-West military divide. The Warsaw Pact of NATO symbolized the bipolar world of the Cold War. Next, in slide 8, Berlin blockade and airlift. In 1948, Stalin attempted to force Western allies out of West Berlin by blocking all ground access. In response, the US and its allies launched the Berlin airlift, supplying the city by air for nearly a year. The black-killed field in the event became a symbol of Cold War resolve in early Western unity against Soviet aggression. Next is slide 9, the summary. The Cold War stemmed from the conflicting ideologies and post-World War II power dynamics. The Truman Doctrine, the containment, defined early U.S. foreign policy. NATO and the Warsaw formalized the division of Europe. Events like the Berlin airlift showed how the rivalry played out the real-world confrontations.